World of Warcraft is a massively multiplayer MMO, something which is not normally regarded as a speedrunnable game. Unlike traditional games like Super Mario or Zelda that have a clearly defined goal, World of Warcraft is designed around long periods of play, and there isn't really a set end of the game. In essence, there is no way to officially complete an MMO, however some people have set out the task to reach the max level in World of Warcraft as quickly as possible. However, the record set in the classic version of the game is what we will be focusing on. World of Warcraft, or any other MMO, changes drastically from different patches and expansions. Due to this reason, World of Warcraft is a drastically different game from its original version. The game today is very different from how it was in the classic version, so there isn't really a way to actually get a comparable speedrun from 2004 to 2006 era of World of Warcraft and the version of WoW that we have today. A classic WoW speedrunner in 2006, named Joanna, managed to reach the max level of 60 in 4 days and 20 hours of game time. Game time is the way that speedrunners of World of Warcraft measure their times, something that you can find out by typing in /played, and it lets you know how long you've been logged in on that character. Joanna was a pioneer in speedrunning the game. His strategy involved using a hunter, which was one of the strongest classes for solo content. The hunter, unlike other classes, were not that gear dependent, and the hunter could also use their pet as a main tank, meaning that in most fights you wouldn't actually take any damage, and dying as a hunter in classic WoW was a lot harder. Not only that, but hunters had access to a spell that significantly increased their walking speed before they had a mount. And something important to know about the classic era of World of Warcraft was that only high level players could actually use mounts. Starting at level 40 you can get a mount, but for most people there was no other way to increase your movement speed before then. Hunters were one of the lucky ones, and they had Aspect of the Cheetah, which gave them a 40% movement speed buff. Joanna's run was very well optimized. As you would expect, there was little room for quests that took too long or were way out of the way that they would have diminishing returns for XP. Joanna reached the max level, a prospect seen by most players at the time as mathematically impossible, in under 5 days of game time. In today's WoW, you can even get to level 120 by a day and a half, which is a far cry from the length of time it would take you to get to even level 60 in classic WoW. So that just goes to show how impressive this was. Joanna's approach inspired a lot of interest by casual players looking to increase the speed of their leveling process. She wrote a leveling guide explaining her methodologies. Her guide explained which quests were worthwhile to take and which mobs were easier to kill than others. Until the end of the classic WoW era, nobody managed to come close to her time of 4 days and 20 hours. And with WoW's first expansion, the Burning Crusade, releasing, attempts to beat this record were shut away forever. As time went on, Blizzard developed the game to make the leveling process easier and shorter. Although the max level increased with each expansion, the time it took to reach max level was drastically decreased. In addition, there were drastic changes to core gameplay elements that made leveling in WoW much more casually friendly. You could get a mount at level 1, items that could increase your XP, nerfs to the stats of NPCs, purchasable level boosts, and so on. The main speedrunners lost interest in the modern version of the game, and instead they spent their efforts on private servers of the classic version of the game. A player by the name of Joker D was one of these players. Joker D theorized and practiced how to level up to 60 the fastest way possible for quite a while. However, his speedrunning was never officially recognized because these were after all private servers and not an official World of Warcraft product. So with Classic WoW coming out a few days ago, he finally had the opportunity to break the official world record of reaching level 60 in Classic WoW. Joker D wanted to reach the max level before anyone else in the world, and he wanted to be the fastest level 60 of all time. His approach was quite different to what Joanna did. You see, Joanna's strategy was not that dissimilar from how a regular player would actually play the game, doing quests and killing mobs just in a much more optimized way that was focused on speed. Joker D's approach, however, is solely based on killing multiple mobs at the same time by taking advantage of the mage's class abilities. You see, mages in Classic WoW were the only class capable of AoE farming. With spells like Frost Nova and Blizzard, you could actually control large packs of mobs and do massive amounts of damage without being hit. If you managed to control this well, you could get an insane amount of XP per hour, without having to rely on other people or quests. And yes, despite not gaining XP from any quests, the amount of XP that you would get from farming mobs in this method would offset this. Another advantage to this spell is that Blizzard doesn't really scale with any gear, and when you're in the leveling process your gear is really bad, the difference between a mage in really good gear and a mage in really bad gear for Blizzard is pretty much negligible, so you can have poor gear and still do a lot of damage using Blizzard. With the right combination and talents, you could manage to do some really efficient AoE grinding that Joker D took advantage of. So on August 27th, Classic WoW was officially launched, and Joker D's plan was to stream himself reaching the max level before anyone else. He immediately got to work and began leveling at an insane pace. He quickly got ahead of the pack, however when he gained access to the spell Blizzard, that's when his XP gains really took off, and the AoE grinding method became viable. He could manage to kill packs of mobs at a distance by taking advantage of the mage's chill effect, allowing him not to be hit by controlling the mobs. That would usually kill him in a few seconds if he wasn't controlling it right. Joker D showed a masterclass in how to level a mage in Classic WoW, and quickly outpaced a well-known guild named Method, who were trying to get the world first as well. Now it's worth mentioning the race to world first 60 is done in real time. The time it would take for you to sleep would set your time back compared to everybody else. Joker D played pretty much continuously, with most days getting little or no sleep. Joker D managed to stay awake and stream his leveling process regardless of sleep deprivation. Unsurprisingly, he encountered his fair share of trolls and griefers looking to kill him since he was on an active PvP server. However, due to him being at a much higher level, it was not much of an issue, and he managed to deal with it pretty well. However, a mechanic called layering would allow him to ultimately evade any griefers looking to slow his pace. Layering is a controversial game mechanic added into World of Warcraft Classic, which was not present in the 2004 and 2006 era of the game. Layering is essentially servers split up into different segments to avoid lag and server instability. You can be on the same server as a person, but not being on the same layer. Ultimately, you're in two different worlds, even though you're on the same server. Each layer had its own set of unique NPCs, treasure chests, and players. As you can imagine, this could be manipulated to gain an in-game advantage. Going to a new layer can actually be triggered by joining another person's group, which would usually transport you to a new layer, with a whole set of new mobs. In Joker D's run, he took advantage of this by joining a friend's group after defeating a pack of mobs, which would immediately respawn the mobs that he just killed, allowing him to continuously farm the same mobs over and over again, without having to worry about spawn time. Joker D's use of the layering mechanic in Classic WoW did attract some criticism, some even saying that it could invalidate his run. Joker D managed to persist with his leveling process, despite the negative health implications of sitting down and playing a game for such long periods of time. I don't know if any of you guys have tried to stay awake for 24 hours, but it's definitely a big challenge, especially when you're streaming and playing a game for such a long time. That is a lot of effort to put into a speedrun, where doing a speedrun like this is definitely going to have a risk of negatively impacting your health. Despite this, Joker D persisted with his strategy of AoE grinding and layer hopping and managed to get the world first level 60 in Classic WoW. His official time was 3 days, 7 hours and 14 minutes with 31 seconds, a significantly faster time than Joanna's record set 13 years ago. Some accused Joker D of account sharing, and that staying awake and playing the game for that long a time was physically impossible. However, there is no solid evidence that this was the case. For all intensive purposes, Joker D is the fastest level 60 in WoW history. All this being said, Classic WoW has only been out for 4 days as of this recording. So I have full expectations that his time will be challenged by other people looking to beat his record. However, Joker D will forever be the first person to reach level 60 in World of Warcraft Classic. If you guys enjoyed this video, please check out Joker D and Joanna's stream. These guys are legends of the game and definitely deserve your support. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel. This is vaulty, signing out.